So on Saturday, June 29th, I believe, I took one of the wheels off of the handcar, put it in the back of my dad's truck, and we drove over to this guy's house. He said that he could make some rail for me. And he told me that he envisioned using 1¼ inch, I believe it was, steel tubes, and welding it to some flat bar and using the flat bar as tie plates. And I kind of got a little bit of an image in my head of what it was, but I didn't quite have it all figured out in my head as soon as he said it. I was a little bit concerned that I wouldn't have anything to do because all I knew about was it would involve welding, and turns out I had plenty to do besides that. So we took pieces of flat bar, cut them up into about 5-inch pieces, drilled 2 holes in them, that way we could screw it directly into the tie. Also taking this big heavy grinder thing, which I forgot to take a picture of, and grinding the rust off of the steel tube and the flat bar so that he could weld it together. And we also took those little 5-inch pieces, cut them up again into 3 smaller pieces, and that way we could lift the rail, or lift the steel tube, a little bit higher up off of the tie. That way the wheel could clear it. And it turns out the wheel probably could have cleared it anyway, but it's good to be safe because you never know what might happen when a train stops in the middle of the wilderness. Now this rail is kind of similar to, at least in my eyes, a rail which I'm sure you've heard of, a rail that I've heard of since I was a small child, Groovy Track, which is basically like steel flat bar as rail. Now this seems to work pretty good for like 16-inch gauge trains and 1-foot gauge trains and so on. But for a standard gauge hand car, it seems like it would wear on the wheels rather harshly. I've read that it has a tendency to wear on the wheels of equipment because it's not rounded off at the edges. It's, you know, perfectly squared usually. But this steel tube, it didn't seem like that would be an issue. I was actually a little bit concerned that it was too round. But we rolled the wheel on top of it, and it seemed to fit pretty well. So we went ahead cutting metal up and drilling holes in the metal. So after we made a few of them, Gary took the 5-inch piece of metal, welded one of the shorter, like maybe a 1-inch, 1½ inch pieces of metal, welded them to each other, and then welded that to the steel tube, 1¼ inch steel tube. And we put the tie plate, if you could call it that, a little bit off center. That way we wouldn't have to worry about the wheel hitting the head of the bolt as it rolled across the train tracks and having to deal with a clunk every 3 feet. We also decided that we just put the cross ties 3 feet apart for this, since it was just a test track and since all I'm running on is my hand car. Now if we made future rail, we might shrink it down to 2 feet, but it kind of depends on what ends up happening. So we ended up finishing those 2 20-foot pieces of rail, and after we were all done, Gary said, "Do you want me to cut up into 5-foot pieces? That way you can fit it in your truck, or would you like me to deliver it whenever it's convenient?" And I was like, "Yeah, deliver it whenever it's convenient." And since we had waited 2 weeks to make the rail, it was about time for him to come around my part of the state again to mow some grass. So that Wednesday, he dropped the rail off. But that's another video. So be sure to watch out for a video I'll publish one of these next few days, showing the train track and how well it works, and how I put the train track on the ground. Thank you so much for watching and tolerating my videos. Please like, comment, and subscribe.